I'm a big fan of Wake Up, but I do think there are some serious questions for Arifin to think about in terms of mixing of media and politics.
But I mean, after having gone to a WP rally, the final night,
You all went to a
Burning Man like that.
zook out together.
Hey, the queue was damn long. Like, were you in the queue?
it's like zook out. It's like zook
Were
out.
you in the queue? The queue was damn long.
Yeah, it
man.
was damn long. And then there was a bottleneck at the entrance.
Yeah.
And then all the sweaty bodies. It was like zook out.
The good thing about the Raj Joshua Thomas incident is that I think it showed the power of public pressure. And I think that the Lawrence Wong government, certainly much more so than any previous government, will be sensitive to public pressure. We now have clear evidence that, if you speak up loudly enough and there are enough of us, government listen lah.
Singapore is hitting the big 6-0 this year. And Folklore, our audio service, is marking this milestone by interviewing 60 Singaporean seniors over 60 years old to capture their life stories for our Words of Wisdom project. Because these are folks who've seen it all, the ups, the downs, and even kopitiams turning into hipster cafes. Their stories are national heirlooms that need to be preserved for future generations. And we've already recorded and launched the first wave of 20 recordings. So you can listen to these raw, unfiltered conversations filled with life lessons, memories, and a whole lot of heart. But we still need your help to find more legends to feature. Got a parent, grandparent, or that uncle who's always dropping nuggets of wisdom at family gatherings? Great! Nominate them at folklore.com/words of wisdom to make sure their stories never get lost. You can also check out the first wave of recordings on our website. The link is in the show notes, so help us keep these stories alive. And now, on to the podcast. What's up, everybody? Welcome to another episode of Yala, your thrice weekly podcast where we talk about the hottest news with a touch of what, Terrence?
Good old humor.
Good old humor, man.
Yeah.
Today, a very special episode because we're having on a guest who's now on Yala for the 7th time.
Lucky number 7.
Lucky number 7,
lucky number
man.
7. How lucky are we?
How lucky. And he's the perfect person to talk to, as we are still coming off the election. So we'd like to welcome back Sudhir Thomas Vadaketh, co-founder of JOM, and one of the most esteemed social and political commentators of our generation.
Wow, I didn't know that. Thanks, man. Thanks.
That's a surprise.
What's up, man?
Good. Thanks for having me on. But I know why I come here so frequently, because now that you guys have run through all the politicians, you got nowhere else to call. I'm like the fucking MOF filler, I know.
No.
Hey, Sudhir, no lah.
No. We had you during when we were on the bus. We went all the way to Pasir Ris just to talk to you.
True.
Yeah.
It's true.
Like we spent so little time in Pasir Ris, but in that time we spent most of it with you.
We got bitten by mosquitoes.
Yeah. Normal.
Normal. But yeah, the last time we had you, it has been a while. It has been a while.
Yeah. But at the same time, we also, during the election, we were also pointing a lot of people to actually check out what JOM was doing, your daily dispatch.
Oh, great.
And I think your live stream as well, right? Because I think it was filling a space in the Singapore media scene that needed to be filled very badly.
Yeah.
I think for you were watching the JOM live stream all the way as well, right?
Yeah, all the way. It was between you guys and CNA because you guys provided very different sides of the same coin.
Yeah.
Whereas the other ones, I felt it didn't do any one thing well. But for you guys, I appreciate it. It felt very real.
Yeah.
Both the highs and the lows.
No, it was a good learning experience for the team. I mean, institutionally, like just figuring out how to do live stream and just all the moving parts and also bootstrapping, right? So different people are filling in different roles and, one person's doing the ticker, one person's doing all kinds of different things. So,
But you were approaching the GE as like, this is the event for the defining event, right? For JOM, at least for the last few years, right?
Yeah.
What was your mindset of you and your team going?
No, it's I sometimes call it like a debutante's ball for indie media because I think and it was so nice to see 3-4 years of work since we started, see that all culminating in our GE product, and seeing people very spontaneously doing new things. You talked about Daily Dispatch. We essentially moved from being a weekly magazine to a daily, and that creates all kinds of stresses on the team. But it was great to just see people filling in and helping out and making it all come together. So, very happy with how the team performed.
So that means like...
and they haven't killed me yet, I think everybody's super stressed out.
So that means overall it blew past your own expectations? Or like how did that compare to what you were expecting for JOM particularly?
I think in terms of the product, the videos, the live stream, the Daily Dispatch, I as a writer and editor, I was super happy with the product. In terms of the numbers, I think we were doing pretty decently, and then we made a final video appeal, and the final video appeal really helped to boost our numbers. So I think before GE, we were about halfway to breaking even, and now we're about 2/3 to breaking even, which is $35,000 a month in revenue for us. So we're not quite there yet, but the trajectory is very clear, and so I'm decently happy about the numbers. But the product I'm really happy about, and the feedback we've gotten about our Daily Dispatch, how Daily Dispatch was sort of filling a gap, because mainstream media wasn't providing that much sort of commentary and opinion, right? They were doing a lot of reporting. I think their reporting was decent, but they weren't doing a lot of commentary, and we did a lot of that.
I was going to say that, I know it's stressful and there's a lot of work, but the Daily Dispatch was awesome, and I hope you can carry on. I don't know how, but I felt like it was really filling a gap, and even some of my friends, they were sharing it. And these are in WhatsApp groups that maybe they don't even not aware that you've been on our podcast or something, and they were sharing it. I was like, fuck yeah, man.
Yeah. And it really helped our social media followership But Daily Dispatch, I'll just say, is super siong because we have a small team. Every morning start at about 7:30, and we go all the way to about 1 p.m. every day. And that's on top of everything else we're trying to do So it's pretty siong .
But I did notice that in the lead up to your the election day live stream, you were quite naughty also. The marketing was forget CNA. Right.
Yeah.
Is there a reason why it's so targeted at CNA? Why?
Oh, that's true.
Well, I think we like to be a bit cheeky with our marketing.
Yeah.
We like to take little digs at the fact that we're a small indie outfit, and we're, somewhat against these state-sponsored behemoths who've been around forever, who sometimes their product is good, but often I don't think their product is very good. I certainly don't think their election night product has been very good. Many people have complained to us, same old Eugene Tan sitting in the studio talking, So I think that's why we were having a bit of fun with them So
but to be fair, it wasn't Eugene Tan this time, right?
Okay.
It was Felix Tan, is it?
Who was not bad. I thought the other commentary was not the best.
Yeah, they call him the election Zaddy.
Election Zaddy.
Election Zaddy, oh wow.
Because he quite, well-built and all. He was not bad.
But you're saying that a lot of people are complaining about the mainstream media coverage, in the lead up to the election night and all that, right? What were the most egregious examples?
I mean, the coverage overall, I just watched your Cherian interview this morning. And while I generally agree with a lot of what Cherian says, almost on all issues, but I felt a little bit harsh he was about the mainstream media. I did think that there are certain things they could have done much better. The cooling off day thing was obviously so obvious, right? But then for most of their reporting, I thought it was okay. I think the problem is that they just shied away from doing a lot of hard-hitting commentary and analysis, which anyway we wouldn't have expected from them. My main issue in terms of coverage of topics was with the NTUC, with the Income Alliance thing, and I can tell you specifically, I think in most other democracies, if the former income head, or there was a former PAP branch chairman as well, had written open letters, right?
Yeah.
Those would have gotten dedicated articles about them in the mainstream media, if not made front page news, right?
Yeah.
But in Singapore, there was hardly anything about that, right? So I went to look specifically for this. When were the times they mentioned? I think what's his name? Tan Swee Share, right?
Yeah, Tan Swee Share.
When were the times they mentioned his letter? It was always in the context of a PAP rebuttal or a PAP response, right? And they always frame it in the PAP's terms. So for me, that's the most obvious incident with the mainstream media when it came to reporting. And I compared it to the Andre Low incident.
Yes.
Andre Low fuck in a Telegram group, that got dedicated coverage from the mainstream media. It's nonsensical,
Yeah.
That's all the mug machine could dig up, right? Fuck in a Telegram group. Why do you have to even give it any attention? The real crucial issue, or one of the real crucial issues, the Income Alliance saga and disclosures and all that obviously didn't warrant its own space. So yeah.
But in the throughout the period of the election, I know we saw you midway as well, and I think you were obviously very, stressed with work and all that, right? But how were you
I was
feeling?
fucking stressed, bro. Yesterday was the first day in like 5 weeks I didn't have a drink. I've been
Didn't have a drink. Okay.
Damn shack.
I see.
Anyway, carry on.
No,
Sorry.
because last week I was on some radio thing where they asked, did social media overhype expectations of change in this election, right? How was your own take on things? Were you feeling like, oh, this is the moment that there's going to be huge change in this election? And at what point did it change, or at what point did it peak during the lead up to the polling day?
Yeah, so I guess, this is probably like the fourth or fifth election GE that I've really been closely following and covering in a way, right?
Yeah.
06 was probably the first one. 2011 was the big one that I first started writing about. So I think I've been through that cycle many times, and then you always have to be aware of your own sort of little echo chamber, right, that you're in. And whatever you might think is happening may not actually reflect what's going on in town. And that's actually why I love elections, because it's your once in 5 year chance to understand what the rest of your country thinks, right? The rest of the time you're in your little echo chamber most of the time. So I would say I was a little surprised. I think before the election I thought the PAP's sort of winning margin might be somewhere in the 58 to 62 range. That's what I was expecting, or 57 to 61. And so I was certainly surprised that Lawrence got like 65 plus, right? The PAP got 65 plus. The things that would have really surprised me, I guess, and this is why I think on the live stream, I was really shocked at a certain point, because Walid leaned over and showed me a text from Paul Tambyah, right? Paul had messaged Walid directly, and it was don't get into the details of the words, but it obviously a very somber, sad, depressing kind of text that he had sent Walid. And this was before we heard the results. And then I saw that, and Paul is like, of all the people who I think deserve a seat in Parliament, Paul is sort of the sweetest guys around. Yeah. He came on your show, right? And I consider him a pretty good friend. I've known him for several years now, and so I just felt so sad for him, That I think transmitted through me for the rest of the show. I think because I was just like, oh man, and then I saw the actual score that he got, and that one I was really shocked,
Yeah.
Paul's score, I was like, oh damn, that's. Yeah, so I think that the rest of the results, I was like, I didn't really. I guess what would have shocked and probably saddened me is if the WP had lost some of their GRCs, because I think that would have been bad for Singapore. If they had lost any of their elected seats, but that didn't happen. I would have liked to see Harpreet Singh in Parliament, but that's his first time going up, and they parachuted in a task force man and all that. So. So I guess the short answer is that I'm kind of used to the emotional fluctuations. I think that night what we were transmitting on live stream also was it was super emotional and super charged, man. Just managing that whole live stream, I was like,
the logistics of it.
The logistics of it. I got my colleagues behind the camera, they are transmitting their vibes to me through their faces, and then I'm like, oh man, what happened? And for me also just trying to manage that whole scene was interesting,
Yeah, live stream is a different beast.
Yeah.
It's a different. But is there anything that kind of you learned about Singapore, the electorate, that maybe in some ways surprised you for this election particularly, especially because you have been covering 4 elections and following closely? Anything new this time around?
So this is where some of my friends disagree with me, including some of my panelists that night. But I actually really feel Singaporeans getting more and more engaged, getting more and more interested in the issues. This is not just in the past month or two, but this is over past 6 months, past 1 year.
Yeah.
And I guess it's not something that suddenly happened, but it's been a slow progression over years, I think maybe 06, 2011 is when you first saw murmurings of that, maybe the apathetic Singaporean is going away. And I think for me that was one of the highlights of GE. I'm sure even a lot of people I know who ultimately voted PAP, whoever you voted for, they were actually properly reading and researching issues lah. You know, a lot of people, and I don't think it's just my age now that I'm getting older and people are more interested. I do think it's pretty broad based, and people who sort of debate me on this point, like I said, including on the live stream. I mean, for me, the clearest indication is also Jome's numbers, right? Our viewership numbers and all that. You know, it's we've seen such a spike during GE. And for me, that's one clear sign that people are looking for alternative views and wanting to get their get more interested in different issues that are important to them.
But what would be the points of your panelists or people who disagree with you? Why do they take a more pessimistic approach?
I think theirs is more a base thing about looking at the vote share and saying, oh, you know, it's if the vote share is so high, then it means people are just voting somewhat blindly or without thinking lah. You know,
fleeing to safety.
Whereas if it was true that people were actually analyzing issues, whether it's cost of living or inequality or immigration, if it's true that people are actually analyzing these issues at a deeper level, then you might see a bit of a shift to the opposition lah in terms of the vote. So I think it's that simple calculus that's mostly driving that thought.
But you mentioned the issue about income alliance not getting its light of day in the mainstream media. Like I also talked to people who said that even if that issue was covered in the media, it's almost too complex an issue to really move the needle on people's decision between Ng Chee Meng and Andre Loh, right? Whereas like someone scolding an F word, you know, scolding Singtel, scolding StarHub, all that, much more emotive, right? Makes people sit up and, hey, this guy scold vulgarity, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
Do you think like that would have made a big difference if the Income Alliance thing had more coverage?
I mean, I think different people get affected to different extents by each of those issues lah, right? There's certainly some people who think the fuck in the Telegram group means nothing, but there'll be a whole spectrum of people who think it might mean something lah. So whether or not the Income Alliance getting more coverage would have affected, I do think so. I do think so. Yeah, I think if there were harder questions being asked, if the mainstream media didn't always portray it in the sense of the PAP's narrative, which is what they effectively did.
Yeah.
Then why not? I think Singaporeans are smart and savvy enough to have asked questions about that lah. Yeah. Just like we're asking questions now about, you know, any potential connections to Su Haijin, whatever his name is. Yeah.
Do you think it would have affected if there was more detail?
I actually lean towards minimally lah. Because even for us also, we've covered the Income Alliance topic at length, right? And we spent a lot of time even getting Tan Kin Lian, Tan Swee Chee on the podcast to talk about it. And even for us, after doing all the reading, everything, the timeline is still very, it's complicated lah, right?
Yeah.
And to distill it into a sound-biteable piece that would actually make people sit up, oh, I can't vote for this guy because of it. I actually feel that would have been tough lah. Even for us, all the time that we spent on the topic, it's still hard to distill into like something that is easily translatable to, a guy on the street who's trying to live his life or just trying to attending a Fullerton rally because his friends are going there after bubble tea. It's not something that I feel like would really move the needle for them lah. Do you think so?
I also would think that probably as much as to me that is a huge character flaw lah, almost, if he had a part to play and didn't even take a chance to come forward and, you know, explain his role in it or even kind of accept a bit of responsibility. To me, that's a big no-no. But I also feel that even if that was spelled out, right, I don't think it would make a big difference. And I think my perception about the people who voted and all, I think over the course of the whole week has also evolved in the sense that I think, those sort of things is almost too far removed. Like, okay, this alliance still going through it's multiple levels for anyone to feel the effect. That's why at first I was thinking, even the impact of, you know, the tariff war, like, would that really change people's minds? But I think because it ties back to cost of living, right, there's something visceral. Same way with the F word, there's something visceral. we get scolded, I guess mainly me, between Terence and I, scolded for using F word a lot on the podcast. And it really offends people.
Who scolds you? Who scolds you?
I think, okay, so
comments?
admittedly, sometimes people say they like the podcast and they play it in their car when their kids are around. Then suddenly I let go one F word or something. Then they're like, can you please reduce it? So I think...
Oh man, I started off this podcast with it.
That's why you said it 3 times.
No,
Right?
but you were talking about news. You were something,
That's
you're
right.
quoting
Sudhir,
quoting somebody.
Sudhir, you're not helping the case. This is even before going into the K word, But I think, and also something like, our episode with Lawrence Wong, from talking anecdotally to friends, people can watch the same thing and have very different perceptions of how that went. And that was very eye-opening. Because if someone goes in already not liking the approach by the PAP, be it in general or during elections, they come away thinking, oh, it's more of the same. But people who resonate with the thing, they come away saying that was a great, I think Lawrence Wong did great. And that was very eye-opening. I think in terms of the comments, it's probably one of the most polarizing that we've ever had.
Yeah.
You look at the comments, some people say this was a terrible response, all the non-answers. Some people say, I love how he answered the question so succinctly. And you look at it, you're like, what the hell is going on?
And not just comments, right? People in our circles. People, who I mean, they read a lot and they claim to be very educated about everything going on in the political space. But they also have very different reactions to it.
I'm sure we bring our own biases into, how we perceive and comprehend things. In terms of the result, what was the final with Andre? And it was 48.
51 something.
Yeah, I don't know whether it would have turned the result, I'll say that, but I think it would have made a difference in terms of the perception of candidates, how the mainstream media would have covered it, for sure.
But you think,
I think,
you think if there's no effort thing, then got a chance?
Oh, no lah. I don't think that,
you don't think effort?
I don't think the F word alone thing would have affected the result that much. I suspect lah, but who knows?
But how about the K word?
Also, of course, it was a private convo, right? And it was
you try
the K word. Okay, the K word.
The K word in terms of how it affected the perception of Chee Soon-Juan. And Chee Soon-Juan also came quite close, right?
Yeah.
But his perception of his leadership and his recruitment process and everything.
And even Paul Tambyah.
And Paul Tambyah also, yeah. So do you think the K word made an impact?
Wait, I'm allowed to say what the K word is,
right?
You
two are allowed.
We are allowed to.
I can't. I don't have that privilege.
Just for the benefit of listeners who don't know, I mean, the K word is killing Kia, which was said by one of Arifin's colleagues, Jijin Wong. And the history of it is that it might come from the Kalinga dynasty of India, but certainly in the last 2 centuries that it's used in a derogatory way for a whole bunch of different reasons, right? And I was totally shocked when I heard that right?
Yeah.
I mean, some of my Hokkien friends, especially the older aunties, they're like, oh, we just use it casually, yada, yada, yada. But it's certainly a derogatory word, And to hear that in a rally speech is just quite shocking, in today. Even if it was the 1970s, I would have been shocked, but today it's just nonsensical. And I messaged Arifin that same morning, and he told me as well that he was totally shocked, because I actually thought it's a fake video or something, when I first saw it. But what I will say is that, and at JOM in our daily dispatch, we were quite critical of the SDP that day, Jijin in particular. But I don't know if you guys watched the SDP's apology 15 minutes long or something, and they took turns and all that. And I thought that was one of the best explanations or explorations as well of race in society today, especially by Arifin. So I think they did an amazing job the day after. But I don't know how that would have affected the vote It's kind of weird. Hey, did you all see that fella like halfway through? Also, there was one fella when Arifin was talking saying, "Let's move on."
Yeah, I did. We did.
So I found out that this dude, because I was like, what kind of SDP supporters you all have? So I found out apparently that this dude was standing in the corner of the crowd, right? And he was going on, let's move on. And then he later strategically moved his way in front of the cameras and the microphone so it get picked up by the microphone.
Oh.
So it sounds like another saboteur, just like potentially Jijin Wong. I mean, who is the Jijin Wong person?
Yeah. So, but then, do you think it impacted just the general perception of the SDP?
I think so lah. I think it would have, if anything, it would have just looked very bad on the SDP lah. Because how many people would have actually gone into the details of what we just talked about?
Yeah,
let's go and listen to the apology.
Yeah.
Let's go and understand what killing Kia actually means. Let's go and see.
Yeah.
Very few. I think for a lot of possible voters, it would have just been like, what the fuck? These guys don't know how to run ship.
Yeah.
They've slapped together a cock team. One person saboing the other. They don't know what's going on. That's why I think a lot of people would have come away with that.
Yeah, it did feel like that. It's almost like within the SDP, it's like the party with the greatest variance of almost competency of candidates, which I find very sad for the individuals like Dr. Chi and Dr. Paul, because they've been around for a long time. And even Arifin, I think as a first timer, he did pretty well.
Oh, he did a great job.
Yeah,
his speeches are all amazing. Yeah.
Yeah, so that's why when that happened with Gigi Wong, same thing. We were like, wow, how is this possible? At first, I thought she was the host or something, like some volunteer MC gone rogue or something who were kind of screwed after. But then no, she was running for candidacy, and it's Arifin's candidate mate,
Yeah.
And this is where I think Chee Soon-juan possibly, I don't know enough, but Chee Soon-juan possibly has some culpability because that team suddenly looks like it was kind of slapped together, for sure.
Yeah.
And I don't know why, if it's true that it was slapped together late in the day, I don't know what were necessarily the tactical considerations about why we want to send a team up against Lawrence Wong's team and why we're going to slap together a team at the last minute. I'm guessing Chi was the tactician in the team. I don't know who exactly it is.
Yeah.
But I think if it's true that it was a last minute thing, as it seems to me to be the case, then, you got to ask questions about Chi's leadership as well.
But I mean, since we're on the topic of Arifin, and I think both of you all saying very good, he did well in his first showing. I do also remember you very distinctly one time when you were here saying that, activists like Louis Ng, for example, it's too bad that they joined politics, right? Because actually what you do as a politician versus being an activist are two very different things. And if anything needs more support, is activists in Singapore, they don't have a voice, right, compared to a politician.
Yeah.
So someone like Arifin, who runs a very Wake Up Singapore, which is a platform that's grown a lot in the last few years, right?
Yep.
Now that he's entered politics and all, that kind of takes away from the impartiality or independence of Wake Up Singapore, right? Which is something I have spoken about on this podcast. But I mean, do you think it's a good thing that Wake Up Singapore now is, so obviously being led by someone who, is a politician himself?
You have talked about Wake Up and Arifin.
Just briefly, in the lead up to this.
I mean, okay, so let's backtrack. I don't think, I don't necessarily condone any activists going into politics for the reasons we mentioned. I think it's inevitable. I'm actually glad that Louis is now moving back to civil society.
Yeah.
Because, and the larger reason is that I think as our democracy and society matures, we need to create alternative power centers, right? It can't just be that we always look to politicians to solve everything. And so I think broadly in the media and civil society elsewhere, and this is often one of my responses as well when people ask me to join politics, it happens every now and then, and I'm like, no I'm hyper focused on creating a good alternative media in Singapore. In terms of Wake Up and Arifin, no, I don't think it's a good thing to mix media and politics like that. I don't think it's a good thing at all. And I've had a brief chat with him about it, and I think he's sort of figuring out what steps to take. Wake Up, I think Wake Up is a very powerful platform, and it's done a great job in Singapore. They've had a couple of mistakes, but which Arifin is very open about, to his eternal credit. And he's learned from them. The biggest one was the KKH incident a few years ago. So I'm a big fan of Arifin and of Wake Up Singapore. I think they do an amazing job, especially of broadcasting and highlighting issues that we wouldn't even know about most of Singapore, particularly to do with things like migrant workers and other vulnerable communities. That's really Wake Up's core strength in many ways. So I'm a big fan of Wake Up. But I do think there are some serious questions for Arifin to think about in terms of mixing of media and politics.
But why to you is that a big no-no?
I think the whole notion of independence and partisanship You know, once you mix politics and media, then, you know, are you really an independent media channel, or are you actually closer to like a Petir or a Hammer or one of those publications, right? That's the big that becomes the big question.
Yeah.
And you know, I think generally anywhere in the world, it's not a good idea for politicians to be involved in editorial, because then you get obvious questions. Even if you're the most enlightened journalist and being on this planet, and you run your organization in a way that is not partisan to whichever party you might be part of. So in this case, let's say SDP. So even if you run in a way that's not partisan, and you're sure your content is non-partisan, there's always the problem of perception. The perception risk never goes away, right? Your readership, your viewership is always going to wonder, you know, what is Wake Up's agenda, right? If you're a politician there. So I think, I mean, I know Arifin is thinking about this very hard. So, you know, I have full confidence in him, you know, coming to a good decision about it, how best to like sort of segment and compartmentalize the different parts of his life, But I think it is an important question to ask.
But I mean, on the note of partisanship and all, then do you also feel that the NMP system now has also had its integrity kind of compromised?
100%. 100%. And I mean, there are a couple of good takeaways from the Joshua Thomas incident, right?
Yeah.
For sure now, I think people might view the NMP scheme as a bit of an audition, right? A bit of an audition for, you know, some people might be pining for an actual job with the PAP. That's why they're doing this, as opposed to properly representing the sectors that they're supposed to represent, like whether it's arts or whatever. So I think that's fundamentally damaged the NMP system, and I think it was a big mistake. And to me, it just points to the PAP's desperation. I suspect January, February, March, they were actually finding it tough to get the people that they wanted.
Yeah.
You know, otherwise they would have never sort of damaged this system that they've argued for so long, right? As an alternative to themselves. The good thing about the Raj Joshua Thomas incident is that I think it showed the power of public pressure. And I think that the Lawrence Wong government, certainly much more so than any previous government, will be sensitive to public pressure. And I think that's why he was not fielded in the end. And the other good thing and important thing for people to take away from this is that if you look at the next 5 years, you know, again, knowing that the government is sensitive to public pressure, people should think about how they want to voice out their opinions and what they want to fight for and lobby for, right? Whether it's changing the political rules, whether it's you know, improving the EBRC or gerrymandering, you know, whatever it is that you think in Singapore needs to be changed, we now have clear evidence that, you know, if you speak up loudly enough and there are enough of us, government will listen . But I think it's great.
But I mean, that can also be glass is half full, glass is half empty, because that was in the lead up to elections. We don't know. Maybe after elections, they're like, I don't give a shit.
Maybe. I mean, I think they'll certainly give less of a shit. They'll certainly give less of a shit. But will they not give a shit at all? I think this gets to one thing that Cherian mentioned as well on his podcast with you, which was like, when an era now when politicians are perpetually campaigning, he said something like that, to that effect, right? And I think it's true. You know, like, honestly, in a way, the prep for the next GE has begun already. You know, that's how the modern, you know, world of social media and the blizzard of information is like.
So, I mean, we talked about the SDP a bit, right? But when you look at the results of the election, what do you feel for Workers' Party? Was it a win? Was it not so good, or was it status quo? What do you feel about it? Because I think Cherry and George did reference to it as a status quo election in general for both the PAP and the opposition as well.
Yeah.
How do you feel about Workers' Party's position?
So I think it's the clear thing now is that they have distinguished themselves from the rest. You know, which maybe wasn't the case in the last election, right? The best loser in the last election was Tan Cheng Bok's team, which is why Long Man Wai and Hazel got in. This time, I mean, the distance between the WP and the rest has just grown so much. And so I think sort of philosophically for the party, they have to, in terms of their positioning in Singapore, it's like do you want to always distinguish yourselves from the rest? And does that mean that the public will start to perceive you as just even more PAP light, which is something they've been trying to shed as well?
Yeah.
And how do you carve out that space, with not being associated with the rest of the opposition, but being distinct enough from the PAP, right? Or is it the case that Singaporeans actually only want a PAP and a half step to the left PAP? I don't know. I do agree that there's a loss of diversity in Parliament with having only two parties. I think the other big thing to think about is recruitment. I think recruitment, which has been improving for the WP over the years, I guess star catch Harpreet Singh was the biggest one in the last election. But I think recruitment is going to be really interesting. That's what I'm going to be looking out for. Like the next aspiring budding politician, right? Like how does he or she choose between the PAP and WP? It's going to be very interesting.
But
and also, sorry, on the sort of tail end of that, are parties like the SDP and all that going to be able to attract the Arifins of the world anymore? Maybe they won't anymore. Maybe anybody vaguely interested in opposition will just now drift to the WP.
Yeah.
But do you think it's a problem that people kind of are pulled towards the individual in terms of, their personality, their star appeal, as opposed to really looking deep into the policies and manifestos? Because I mean, to WP's credit, they got some star catchers and all. But I mean, after having gone to a WP rally, the final night, it
you were there? I was there also.
I was there. Like I came and I left early because before the embargo, we were trying to go back and edit
You all went to a
Burning Man like that.
zook out together.
Hey, the queue was damn long. Like, were you in the queue?
It's like zook out.
Were you in the queue? The queue was damn long.
Yeah, it was damn long. And then there was a bottleneck at the entrance.
Yeah.
And then all the sweaty bodies. It was like zook out.
All pre-game before already.
No, pre-game was like mineral water and all. But when I went there, I realized that a lot of them were there for the vibes. Because when I was standing at the back, I couldn't hear shit. It was just echoes and all that. And people were still cheering with their hammer balloons. And I think that was the first time throughout the whole elections where maybe my thought that, what I also assumed that the PAP getting less share started to turn a bit. I was like, like all this fervor and voter turnout for WP, I don't think it will translate to votes. Because I left early also. And when I left, there were more people leaving than coming in. It was really like zook out. People just go there for a good time. So
and they were dressed like Burning Man and that.
Oh, no. It was just my...
I say other people. Were they like dressed up?
No, across the board. Because you get all sorts of demographics. It's not just like the Burning Man demographic.
I see.
So there was like old, young, like every shape and size, families, individuals and all that.
Nice.
So it was an experience. And I think a lot of people went there for that. Just to feel it. It was the final night for the next 5 years, no more rallies. But you can understand the appeal of being at a WP rally. It's like a flex, So do you think that is almost like not a good thing, or overall, if it brings more people into politics, is a net benefit?
You mean having that kind of rock concert star appeal type atmosphere?
Yeah, and even for the individuals. Even for the individuals. Because certain individuals got attention, be it for their looks and all that, and more about that than less about what they actually stand for. And do you think that is kind of like going down a path that is unhealthy? Because if you ask me, I think I think the PAP comms could have been better. And I think I also don't want it to be the case where people are drawn to certain political parties because of the way they deliver the speech, because of how they look, rather than thinking about, what they stand for. But it feels like, now people are looking for the vibes.
Yeah, okay. So I think certainly what happened with Alexis, to take a very specific example, is not great, okay?
Yeah.
Not great. So I think that has to be addressed and called out. In terms of the larger question that you asked, which is a great question about, I guess, for lack of a better framing, I would just say style and substance, okay?
Yeah.
And I think both are important. When I wrote my very, very, very long profile of Harpreet Singh a long time ago, a lot of people ask me, hey, why you started out with this, like eye candy type thing. I talked a lot about the experience of meeting Harpreet, and I talked about how he looks and what he was wearing and his baritone voice and how he makes you feel welcome and all that. But So I actually got a lot of flack from people. They're like, "Why are you talking up your bro so much?" Like that? And he also was embarrassed. And I actually spent a lot of time with 3 of my colleagues, all women, going through this passage, right, and say, like, is this really what it feels like to meet Harpreet in person for the first time? And they toned me down a bit in certain places, but finally they agreed lah. Finally they agreed. Yeah, this is the experience. And some people said, why don't you just talk about the substance, what he stands for? And I said, dudes, politics has to be also about the style. It's important. When you are there on the ground meeting people, this kind of thing matters. It's mattered all over the world with all kinds of politicians, whether you're Bill Clinton, whether you're whoever you are, it just matters. And you can't ignore the personal charisma and style aspect of being a politician. It's important. It's important. So I think both are important. I think both actually are of value to whichever parties have them. I think you can't just, I wouldn't dismiss too much the personal charisma style aspect of it. And also just in terms of person-to-person communication, and this is where somebody like Chan Chun Sing would be the opposite lah, would be the antithesis of this, right? I mean, because people who've worked with him have told me how sharp and smart he is, but when you are unable to connect with somebody, when you talk to them and sell your idea or sell your proposal or whatever it might be, then it's also problematic lah, in a different way. So I think from the WP's perspective, it's actually great that they have people with that kind of charisma.
Yeah. I mean, in some ways, Jameis, when he came on in 2020, it was all the cockles and, warming the cockles of my heart and all that, right? You could say it's more style than anything. But the last 5 years, they've proven their substance. In fact, like when we went to Sengkang, all that, people we talked to were all like, oh yeah, they're so happy with what they've done, even as a person, as a group of 3, without Raisa Khan there and all that. So they've had time to prove their substance over the years, right?
I think in Singapore politics, it's a good point, because I think in Singapore's political history, we've certainly had many people who've had a lot of substance or maybe not much style, right? And I think it works like that. But I think if you are just style and no substance, people will find out they'll see through you pretty easily. If you're just style and no substance, right?
Correct.
So if Jameis hadn't delivered in Parliament after, people would have seen through it.
Yeah. So then do you think like the new batch of candidates, the new team, the new resolve for the new PAP team, like on the benchmark of style and substance, you think they got style or not?
Wow, I don't know them well enough. I would like to get to know some of them better. I would love to profile a couple of them for Jom. So we're actually going to make another new, fresh effort now that Lawrence has his strong mandate. I'm going to make a fresh effort to try to profile some of the young PAP candidates who've just joined. In terms of the civil servants, what I can say about the civil servants who have joined, I've heard nothing but good things about them. And in terms of their style and all that, honestly, the only one interview I remember is the one when Josephine Teo was introducing her team, and then there were fighter jets going over. Did you remember that one?
Yeah.
So you got a bit of a feel for a couple of the young people. I just don't know them well enough to be able to. But I do my general broad sense, and this is a huge summary of the matter, is that they are kind of similar to Lawrence. Like they're very personable and sort of wonkish and hardworking that's my sense of them. Like nice people.
But aside from the candidate side of things, all right, I think one moment for us in the lead up to polling day was we were quite shocked with the amount of vitriol or anger that was directed at us when we semi-called out WP for abandoning Marine Parade, Braddell Heights, right? And the response from people who listened to us was quite shocking. I would say they were like almost like a IB level of like, wow, you all don't know what you're talking about, and gerrymandering is the reason, and how can you all do this and criticize us? So we're quite shocked at that level of almost tribalism that a lot of the Workers' Party supporters were showing, right? I mean, was it? Did you feel that for you? I think you were quite shaken by it, right?
I wasn't shaken, I was surprised.
When is Harish ever shaken?
Exactly, man. No, I do get shaken a lot. I think for me, my emotions are quite volatile. It's good that it doesn't come across. Fatherhood also. But that one, I wasn't shaken. I was more like, what's going on? I was surprised.
Yeah.
Of course, the next day when we criticize PAP, then like all the flip side lah. Like how can you criticize PAP?
What do you criticize PAP for?
I think one thing we were kind of criticizing Ong Ye Kung's approach during the rally. When he was he very targeted towards Chee Soon Juan and kind of saying like Sembawang West cannot work if Chee Soon Juan is elected because it's part of the Sembawang family.
Yeah, I didn't like that.
Then you're like, huh? So we got scolded by everyone, like, essentially.
But I mean, did you see anything like that from the supporters of either side that surprised you in how they responded to things?
Actually, no.
No.
I didn't. I mean, I'm not surprised that some people would take umbrage at that comment that you made about criticizing WP about Marine Parade because I think I do agree that the structural factors are so overwhelming that those are the ones we need to aim our fire at the structural factors.
That means you mean the rebounding of the redrawing of the boundaries?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. I mean, there are a whole bunch of things, right? I wish some people, other people have asked for this well before I have, but I would love if our boundary report was out at least 1 year before polling day. Some people have called for this. I think it would be great for all involved, except the PAP. We know the PAP likes it out at the last minute. So but in terms of I don't know, man. I think our political culture here, in terms of vitriol and in terms of mudslinging and all that, I don't think it's that bad actually. And I think it is something for Singaporeans to be proud and happy about. That we don't see that kind of toxicity and poison in the discourse that we do in many other places. And I think a little bit, I mean, I'm sure all of us at the table, our skin is thick enough to tahan a bit of vitriol. I actually think a bit of vitriol is fine. I want to see the passion. I want to see the fire in people. You know what I mean? It's I don't want the opposite, people being so apathetic. Of course, unless they abuse you, which I'm guessing they didn't.
But then Ong Ye Kung, why Ong Ye Kung is a problem if you want to see the fire and the passion and calling each other out and all that. Why,
you mean how he behaved? What he said at the rally?
What he said about Chee Soon Juan and abandoning and all that.
I mean, the abandonment thing, I think, is just stupid, short-sighted politics on his part, because the next day it backfired already. The abandonment narrative, but I didn't like what I said. I didn't like is I didn't like the bit about if you elect Chi, then I can't really work with him, I didn't like that aspect of it, because you're basically once again threatening or blackmailing or whatever the constituents there, I don't like that thing,
Plus, he's talking about vitriol from commenters, not ministers. Passion and all from the commenters.
I mean, I get that. So I also didn't like that. But the truth is, I did see it somewhat a little bit even on the Workers' Party side as well, when they talked about I think Tampines and Tampines Changkat. I think it was Tampines and Tampines Changkat, right?
What about
where we'll work together as a whole family like that. I think they said that for the Workers' Party side as well. I think we called it out in our podcast.
Yeah, but I think that was in response to Ong Ye Kung. Because I think what he was saying, if you vote Sembawang West and you get one whole family, then do the same in Tampines, Changkat and Tampines. But I do agree that even certain rallies I listened to from the WP, it felt like they were going down a personal route as opposed to just competing with ideas. And that's where I felt, that's why one thing that stood out for me this whole election was like, okay, what purpose do rallies serve? I think they still serve a purpose, but I think you have to accept that it is maybe a showcase of style. And it's not the place for substance. It feels like it, because anytime, that's why the round table, the debate was so disappointing, because that feels like it's substance fight with substance, There's no style because that's sterile as shit. But that was lacking. Whereas rally, it is about the style. It is about the show. And I don't know how it was in previous elections when there were rallies. Did they really challenge each other's ideas, or is it just low blow after low blow?
I think they were challenging ideas. I don't think it was just low blow after low blow. But even this year, I felt they were. I mean,
I feel not enough.
Like for example, with the GST increases, I think Pritam did a good job of mixing, of mixing the direct attacks with substantive comments about did we necessarily have to raise This is just one example I can remember from one of his better speeches.
Yeah.
I don't know if you remember that.
I remember,
Yeah.
I think I'm kind of in the same camp where I didn't feel like there was a lot of like mudslinging or really dirty attacks in this particular election compared to what I remember previously. But I think you were quite like shook from the second day or something.
No, I wouldn't say like the mudslinging. The thing is, like, let's say even the GST thing, right? I felt, okay, so quite a few across the board for be it WP, PAP, I felt sometimes they're talking about the either the change that they want, but not really the steps on how to get there. Whereas for the PAP, it was more about what they have done in the past and not so much about the change that they want or they plan. So like both of them I felt were kind of lacking in different ways. I think SDP at certain points, especially Dr. Paul's last speech, which was painting a vision that was so out there that it felt like, how the hell are we going to do that?
Oh, I missed that.
Yeah,
his last rally.
Because he mentioned that in a podcast he did the day before, like he was getting criticized for not painting a vision that SDP wants. But I think he said, okay, so here is the vision: free childcare, free healthcare, free education, and it sounded great, but in my mind, I'm like, shit, like how are we going to get there? So that's why I felt like the only rally speech that I felt, okay, was talking about what the person wants to do and a plan from day one. What he's going to do is the independent candidate, Jeremy Tan. I think because he was focusing on the municipal issues with regards to the software running the town council. And he wasn't talking about a global trade war or anything. So, of course, it's like a more localized issue, but then I felt like, I can see step 1, step 5, step 10. Whereas for the others, I felt like it was very high level stuff and then nothing much in between. And then kind of like, not say mudslinging, but just attacking, which was fun to watch. It was fun to watch. But then I was thinking, actually rallies, like what is the purpose of it?
Yeah. Okay, so I guess the one thing I would say is about the PAP is I really didn't like the fear-mongering, which I felt was a bit too excessive, especially with Lawrence, and he doesn't come across as very comfortable when he's doing that. Whether it's the fear-mongering about racial riots that happened at a particular point, talking about Tang Liang Hong and 1997 and all that kind of thing, or whether it's fear-mongering about the current tariff war that's upon us. Hey, do you see Lawrence's, the party broadcast or not?
Yeah.
So that's great. He was like, a storm is coming.
And first half.
First half.
Then there was intermission. And then second half,
No, and the other thing that's really fun, and go and see it later, if whoever hasn't. But he was wearing the lightning badge, right?
Yeah.
And the lightning badge kept catching the light and flashing you and blinding you in the eye.
Oh, is it?
Yeah. Go and look at it. It was pretty cool. So I didn't like that fear-mongering. I think in terms of, but I do really like Lawrence whenever he's delivering something aspirational, telling us to be the best version of ourselves. I do like him on that. In terms of, so you have the municipal issues or things that are very easily digestible in terms of, sort of almost more transactional things, right? I can tell you as a voter what we are going to deliver. There's that part of it, but I do also think that Singaporeans are lacking and want people who can paint big visions of what we can be, right? And I think the problem with the opposition for a lot of that kind of stuff has to do with information and data, and I think that's another thing we really have to keep pushing for.
As in their access to it.
Access to it. So I don't blame somebody like Paul for wanting to talk about free healthcare or other sort of more socialistic things. And I also don't blame him for not being able to give us concrete, granular steps to get there because, a lot of the time we just don't know.
Yeah.
How big is the reserves? How much access do we have to A, B, C, D, E? I think that's something we really have to push for. And again, the PAP will probably resist. But it's in order to build a big picture vision with the digestible steps, we need the data.
Yeah.
So then, like, how, let's say, I know you mentioned that assuming that the government now is more open to feedback, what would you suggest to someone who feels like... So I'm with you on the fact that I think the EBRC report should come out a year earlier. And I think there needs to be more transparency about how they function. This year's report had more info than previous reports, but it's still very thin. So for someone who's listening, what can they do to put public pressure? Is it start petitions? Volunteer with Jom and Yalabat? What would be your suggestion to put public pressure?
I think there's so many avenues, Yeah, for sure. Firstly, there's so many civil society groups who are doing good work, right? There's CAPE, which was started by I think former Yale and US college kids, and they do a lot of voter education, democracy awareness type stuff.
That was the one that they did the
They
quiz.
did the voter quiz, which all of you took.
Yeah,
They great. Really happy to have worked with them at JOM. And if you're interested in migrant worker rights, there are a bunch of groups. It just depends what you're interested in. And I would say Singaporeans can get involved firstly by volunteering and joining some of these groups lah. Even just following them on social media is one tick lah. At the very least engaging with them on social media is one tick. I think. But today, I think public pressure can be shown in so many different ways. Petitions is one of them. I suspect the petition against Ng Chee Meng had some impact. I'm guessing, right? Because the next day but just our voices can be heard through so many different avenues without necessarily having to join or start a formal media outfit. Because I think for a lot of people that might be one step too far, like joining Yalabat or joining JOM. Of course we welcome people who want to join us, but. I think the bar is much lower than that lah. Just getting engaged and talking to people and voicing out your thoughts on social media or wherever is already a lot. So I think it's important. And this is not my thought again. I mean, Teo Yo Yen is the one who I think often talks about this, but it's important in the cultivating of our very young fledgling democracy for people to realize that it's not just during the GE lah. It's between the GE that we need to be democratic citizens.
Don't be mosquito Democrats lah.
Don't be mosquito Democrats. Exactly.
But so in the next 5 years lah, right? Like, what is JOM going to be doing differently from the last 5 years in the lead up to 2030 lah? What do you have in your plans? I'm sure there was a bit of a thought about what's the future after this election and all that, right?
Yeah. In terms of our positioning, I hope that we are more and more accepted as a credible voice. I think a lot of people wouldn't have heard of us before this GE, and which is fine. We were just slowly building our outfit. So I hope that people understand that we're sort of a serious voice lah, not just some like 2-bit outfit that's out to like poke the government or which is the common caricature of indie media lah. You exist just to poke the government, which is not true. We'll happily criticize whichever party we think doesn't conform to our values, right? So just in the past few years, we've criticized the WP on both their position on gay rights, the way they voted at the 377A repeal. We've also criticized them on death penalty because we believe the death penalty should be abolished, right? And they don't. So I think we will stand firm to our values and present those values in society through our writing. In terms of product, I think the thing we'd love to do a lot more of is video. And so this GE also was a bit of a testing ground for video for us lah. The previous time, actually the first time I met you guys was after I had done video as an individual lah. You made fun. You made a lot of fun on my Sudhir TV label. I think that was the first time we met, right?
I reached out to you on Facebook.
So this time was great because that time I was one person bootstrapping. This time I actually had a team. Saki, our head of research and social media, she did an amazing job with the editing. So I think the GE was a great test bed for JOM's video content. And so we hope to do more video, probably a mix of these short documentary type things, but also the commentary videos that we did during GE. And I think we just want to start publishing more on different topics and different things lah. So what we've been doing so far, but just expanding coverage. So for example, more stuff on the environment. Perhaps more food journalism as well.
Journalism.
Yeah, slowly branching out lah, to do different things. So we've only done one food journalism piece so far, which was a exploration of tanda tea rice. Right. So for people who are interested in that, I think I'm pretty sure that one is outside of the paywall. Go and search for our Lecha. Am I pronouncing Lecha? Because you'll see how JOM approaches a topic like that lah. Because we talk a lot about the history of tanda tea rice lah, originating in China, but we also connect it to a farm in Singapore. So there was a farm in Singapore. I think it's called Firefly Farms, if I'm not wrong. But there was a farm in Singapore that actually was the best example of like quote unquote farm to table lah, because they were growing all the greens in Yishun. I think the farm is closed already. They were growing all the greens somewhere up north, and then they were sending it every day to their lecha shop in Vivo City.
I see.
So that's an example of the kind of food journalism we want to do more of, and I think which again, if you think about the media landscape and what the mainstream media does and how Jom as a magazine, we don't call ourselves a newspaper, we're a magazine, right? The different approach we take to issues, right?
I thought when you said food journalism, it's like, what did Ng Chee Meng and Su Hansin eat at the restaurant?
That is a very interesting element to look into.
Exactly. Just, looking at the plates and working out what the average cost per diner is, whether it's $50 or more, that could be something.
Investigative food.
Yeah, investigative food. Like real impact on
Must ask Charles Yeo. I don't know. Does anybody know Charles Yeo?
No, but like for those people who still might not be familiar with Jom per se, like how would you define the approach you take, whether it's with politics or food or culture?
Yeah, I think it's just a lot of we call ourselves a literary general interest magazine. Right. So what does that mean? Our writing tends to have a bit more of a literary flair. Sometimes we're a bit indulgent and we go overboard, right? As opposed to drier news reports. But that's in the writing style. General interest magazine, general interest simply means that we cover every topic lah. Some people think of us, especially those who would have joined during GE, they might think of us more as a political magazine, but we were focusing only on politics during GE lah. But we do all kinds of other things. Arts and culture is very important to us. So we cover a lot of different areas. I think in terms of the approach, I would say it's a much more intensive editorial approach, and there's a lot of commentary and opinion.
Yeah.
A lot of commentary and opinion. So when I say intensive editorial approach, some of our essays can take 2 to 3 months from conception to publication. So that's a typical long-form magazine style lah, as opposed to, your typical newspaper articles, which will, the turnaround time can be days sometimes, right? If not hours. So I think that's the different approach. And that's also why our output is so much lower lah. We only have 3 pieces of content a week every Friday.
I see. So you mentioned earlier that you're on the way to break even, but is there anything that you want to kind of tell our listeners or push them to in terms of what you would like for Jom to achieve or the reality? Because you've also been very upfront about the numbers it takes to, power Jom per month, including being very public about the salaries that you and your teammates take. I mean, if you want to share more about that and maybe why you are taking that approach lah.
Yeah. So we think we need about $35,000 a month in revenue to run Jom. We've got 5 permanent staff and 4 part-timers. And $35,000 a month basically means that the 3 of us on the top tier, we all earn the same salary. 3 of us on the top tier will be getting $6,000 a month lah, which we all think is decent. We don't think it's too much for Singapore to be asking our senior editors to earn $6,000 a month. So that's why 35K is our break even lah.
Is it pegged to anything like top 1% income earners or anything?
Oh, we should.
Can apply a discount. How you get the 6,000?
Not 1%
divided by 90.
But why 6,000 specifically? Like, is it just?
Oh, it's we got one father in the team. Me, I'm 48 this year. I got my mortgage, another 55 million years to pay my mortgage. So we just feel for where we are in our lives, 6,000 is we can get by lah. We all have our different expenses, and so that was all it was. And so in terms of people, what people can do, the best thing you can do is become a paying member lah. Jom.media/membership. Anybody who's interested in helping us out, that's the best thing you can do. There are 3 levels of 3 tiers of membership, whichever one is most appropriate for you. I do want to say a big thank you to both Harish and Terence, actually, honestly, because you guys are the ones who gave us this idea of what's known as build in public. So, throughout our journey, and people who go to the Jom website can see our newsletters, which are all free. The newsletters will always remain free. But since we started, we've always taken this approach that I learned from you guys lah. So we have one newsletter dedicated to why do we call ourselves Jom, right? What's the origins of the word Jom? Why do we decide to paywall some stuff and not paywall some stuff? So all along the way, we've told our membership base why we are doing particular things, just like we are right now. So thanks a lot for that. So what you would have seen is something that we call sort of radical transparency as well, in terms of letting people see exactly where their money is going, which I think is actually, if you think about where media is today and the levels of distrust you have, right, for a whole bunch of reasons, including Russian disinformation and all kinds of things. There's a lot of distrust generally in the media. I think one of the best ways to build a business is by cultivating a small community with full transparency and trust. So that's what we're trying to do.
But wasn't there a tough discussion with the team to okay, everybody, your salaries are all going to be public to everybody now?
Yeah.
Something?
I mean, there were a couple of points of concern. One point of concern was now will some other people try and poach our Jom, some of our best Jom staff They know how much we earn, right? Just tamba a little bit and try to poach them, right? But the co-founders, Charmaine and Wei and I, we sort of build everything together. Our view is that if people at Jom want to leave us for a few bucks more somewhere else, then we also don't want to stop you, We hope that we can provide as fulfilling a work experience as possible. The other point of concern was that, maybe some people will see us in the same bracket as sort of civil society, indies and all that, and they'd be like, wow, you all want 6,000, that's so much, man. So I think that was the other fear, that people think we're asking for too much. But, I think our view is that we've got to stop this idea that people who do this kind of work shouldn't get paid, And you need to keep scraping by just because
struggling artists.
We got to stop this view. Singapore's an expensive place. We got to start paying people decently for what they do. And I honestly don't think, most of us in Jom are still working at quite significant pay cuts, right, from what we might have earned before. So I really don't think 6,000 is too much to ask for. And don't get me wrong, it's a great privilege to do this job. When readers come and thank me for thanks for starting Jom and thanks for writing this, and I also thank them immediately, thanks for letting me do a job that I love every day, right? So we're also quite aware of that, which is why I think also 6,000 for us kind of makes sense,
Oh, that's awesome. Because I think the transparency is definitely something refreshing, and I mean, I guess, so the link for people to go to will be jom.media.
Jom.media/membership.
Okay.
Or you just want to check out our content, please do at jom.media. And the newsletters you can get through the navigation bar and the essays as well.
Awesome.
Nice.
Cool, man.
Yeah.
It's cool because the first time you came on, I think Jom was still in your head only.
Yep.
So now
I don't think we had a name. I don't think we had a name.
And that was right after the 2020 elections as well.
2021.
So these 5 years have sort of tracked the podcast. Our podcast has actually tracked your progress over 7 episodes.
You went from just a Burning Man alumni to now co-founder of your own independent media company. Awesome.
And I mean, I am the public face of the company, but Charmaine and Wei as my co-founders, I think deserve all the credit, and the team that we built since then as well.
Oh, awesome.
Oh,
cool.
Nice.
So I mean, we just have one thing left on the podcast where we need you to do a bit of work, which is the one Shiok Thing. I mean, given you have been through it 6 times already, if you have a bad one Shiok Thing, it's on you. It's on you. You don't get the brief. So you still got a few more minutes. Terence and I can go first.
Yeah.
You have yours?
Yeah, I do. Actually, it's I'm just watching the 2nd season of this Korean reality TV show called The Devil's Plan. I don't know if you saw it before, but it's actually, I think anyone who enjoys board games, escape rooms, and things like that, they made a reality show out of that. So it's just a bunch of celebrities in Korea who get locked into a house, and then they have to just play these games that are very traditionally the kind of board games like Secret Hitler and stuff like that you would play with your friends on a Friday evening, but wrought large in a very big environment. So it's actually quite fun because there's a lot of backstabbing and very political kind of things going on, people forming alliances. And then if you play any of those board games, I think you have also, right? My place where you're required to lie to your friends.
I hate those games.
Yeah, it's actually a very cathartic experience. Because some people,
because I'm not comfortable with lying, Terrence.
I'm
Unlike
sure.
you, just lie through your teeth.
It's a game, Harsh. It's a game. It's not mudslinging. It's just all part of the game.
Everything must be kumbaya. No lies.
I mean, I watched season 1. Season 1 was cool. A lot of celebrities. I didn't know who the hell they were. But this second season has one of the panelists from the dating show Singles Inferno playing in it. So I think it's a easier watch for people who like, Korean pop and Korean dramas and stuff.
So you feel less trashy watching this compared to Singles Inferno?
Yeah, I do. Because you have to use a bit more of your brain and you have to look at people's facial expressions to tell if they're lying. And the editing is very smart. They keep a lot of the details from you so that only after everything's revealed, there's a big shock. And then after that, they'll tell you, 6 hours late, 6 hours ago, this is what happened. That kind of thing.
I see. So
it's quite fun.
Cool. So you didn't watch season 1? You just went
No, I watched season 1.
Oh.
And I got into it like halfway, and then I thought actually it's quite smart, and less trashy than Singles Inferno, for sure.
And do people get eliminated or what?
Yeah, people get eliminated.
People get eliminated,
And then there's a big pot of money at the end, the typical thing.
I see. Okay, cool. My one Shiok Thing is a recent trailer that dropped for F1 the movie. Have you seen it? It's like a Apple original, but also done in partnership with Warner Brothers, I think. So it's brought to you by the people who also made Top Gun Maverick. It's one of my favorite movies of recent times. And this stars Brad Pitt. I mean, it kind of similar to Top Gun Maverick in the sense that he was supposed to be a big-time F1 driver. There was an accident. Then 10 years later, he's making a comeback. And he has a teammate who is much younger. And I think the tagline is, on the F1 track, the fiercest competition is your teammate. It's that sort of dynamic.
Real story or?
No, it's fictional.
Oh, no. But it's called F1.
Yeah, F1.
Literally F1.
F1, the movie.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So the cool thing is, right, if you like Top Gun Maverick, where in the cockpit they have cameras and there's a lot of POV and the expressions, this takes the same approach but in F1. And Brad Pitt is damn cool. Yeah. So you watch the trailer, you're like, oh shit, this looks damn fun. Like Top Gun Maverick was a fun movie to watch.
Yeah.
Right? This movie looks equally fun. Because I don't know if you all have watched what was the Le Mans one, the Ferrari versus something. Ford versus Ferrari.
I've seen that.
That was damn good. But that one, I think it felt like there's a lot of character development and all. This one looks like, okay, there's character development, but it looks like a fun movie. So you just watch the trailer. It looks damn cool.
When is it out?
I think maybe, let's see. It is coming out 27 June.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So it's in theaters. I mean, it's an Apple original film, but it's debuting in theaters. Because this looks like a fun movie to watch in the theaters.
But Tom Cruise is coming out with the final Mission Impossible around the same time as well.
So it's basically all male actors.
So between the two of them, if you want to get an action kick, which one will you choose?
Oh, that one hard.
I'll still say Tom Cruise, right? I mean, you know that the stunts.
But this is different. This is F1. So it's not, say, running off buildings and all. You can watch both, Terrence.
Yeah.
It doesn't have to be mutually exclusive. You're not team Brad Pitt or team Tom Cruise.
No, but in Singapore, when you say F1, there's a hint of elitism and everything about it, right?
Correct.
Like, the people.
This is between me and Terrence. F1, the movie, the ticket for the movie is the same, right?
Yes.
You don't pay more for F1 movie than Mission Impossible, right?
Correct.
Yeah. So if you end up watching it and loving it, I will call you out and I will bring back this episode.
Sorry, I don't subscribe to Apple TV. I can't
Just watch the damn trailer. Okay? It's going to debut in theaters, Terrence.
Okay.
It's going to debut in theaters.
Got it.
Okay, so
it's
funny, man. I don't know how it was for you guys, and Dad, we forgot to chat about your all Singapore trip. But anyway, we'll do it some other time. But I woke up on Saturday, last Saturday, and I realized I didn't know what the hell was going on, man. I didn't know there was a new pope. I didn't know I didn't know shit was going on in India, Pakistan. But anyway, I made up for that the last few days. And the show that I watched that really fascinated me, but in a very almost painful, biting way, right, was Wizard of Lies. It's a 2017 show. It's about Bernie Madoff. The guy, who basically he's a fraud. He ran one of the biggest Ponzi schemes in history in 2008, 2009. And it's he's played by Robert De Niro, and his wife is played by Michelle Pfeiffer. And you really see the tremendous toll, right, that financial crime takes, not just on society, not just on the victims but on the person's family lah. So I think it's a real family drama that's just so powerful and
You mean
honestly,
Bernie Madoff's family?
Yeah.
Oh,
yeah.
really?
So
Okay.
some, the one son ended up committing suicide.
Oh.
Because everybody blamed them also lah. Even though they had no idea, everybody ended up blaming them. And yeah, it's one person, one perpetrator, but you realize the toll it takes on everybody around that one perpetrator lah. Even though the perpetrator is doing his best to protect them, right? And yeah, it's I watched it on HBO, I think, but it's very difficult to watch lah.
That's what you want to decompress.
Yeah. Why?
I mean, that sounds intense.
I mean, I love the F1 stuff too, but I mean, I'm not a huge fan of F1, but I like the sort of racing POV type fast planes and all that kind of thing. But yeah, I did, and also I mean, it's important to me also because I do think, if I look out 10 years or whatever in my own career, right, financial investigative journalism is something I really want to get into lah. Because that's also, I actually think political journalism in Singapore enough already. As in, I think it's at a healthy state.
Yeah.
But
financial
investigative, all your the Su Anjins of the world, and Su Anjin is just like the big person that we know, right? But they're all the other people who are like
nickel investor
who are using Singapore as a free port to remain open, and there are a lot of people who will use it for nefarious schemes, whether it's financing the war in Myanmar or financing the war elsewhere. And I think that's an area where we have it's so immature and underdeveloped in Singapore. We need people to investigate what actually is going on in terms of the financial flows and everything in and out of here. So that's also why that kind of stuff is interesting to me.
Okay.
Yeah.
I cool, man. So it's on HBO. Okay, we can put a link to the trailer or something.
Can, yeah.
Then we ask him to vote which trailer you like better. F1 or Wizard of Lies.
Can. Then some can subscribe to Yalabat and some can subscribe to Jom.
No, we can subscribe to both. That's the whole point.
Yeah,
it's not mutually exclusive, guys.
It's a democracy.
We should not pit ourselves against each other. Okay. Yeah, cool, man.
Through it.
That was great. I mean, thanks for coming by. All the best to Jom. For people listening, please check them out. And I mean, the Daily Dispatch, I don't know if there's room to continue it, but I really loved it.
Yeah, it was super.
My team will fucking kill me, man. They all, last Friday at drinks, I looked at them, I was like, dudes, you know what is the amazing thing about our team now? I've realized we can operate as a daily. Then they all look at me like I'm a hantu, man.
Oh, is it?
No, but I mean, the truth is that I think Jom really filled the gap that
I did.
Even for us as, trying to cover the election from our angle, there were definitely a lot of blind spots that we appreciated when watching, whether it was the live stream or the Daily Dispatches. And more than once, Jom came up as a one Shiok Thing during the campaign.
Oh, great.
The quiz and the Daily Dispatch and all that. Yeah.
Oh, I'm happy to hear that, man.
So kudos to you and your team, man.
Yeah.
The quiz nearly started some fist fights in our office.
More with ourselves.
Internally. What it revealed about ourselves, made me want to punch myself.
That's why. But yeah, man, cool. Thanks so much for coming by. To everyone listening, please check Jom out at the links in the show notes. Anything for yourself, your own profile, or just
no need lah, just follow Jom lah.
Okay, solid. Yeah. And for everyone else, please also check out check us out on Instagram. All the links are in the show notes. And yeah, thanks for listening, and we'll talk to you all very soon.